We're in a secure vault just outside of Denver, where we're going to look at the most incredible collection of sports photography that you have ever seen. Marshall and Brian, I'm so excited for this today. I really am excited to dig into photos. These are absolutely magnificent, and I don't know a lot about them. So I'm excited to have you guys educate me on these. Some of these turn into images for cards, which is amazing. And of course, this is my world, so I'm excited to see the crossover. And you guys, I know, are the right people to talk to because you literally wrote the books on collecting photography. Marshall, you wrote this one, and I know you collaborated on this one together. We're going to talk about that as well. But Marshall, why don't you start by telling us about these images, right? So you've got so many iconic photos, and this is just a small collection of so many all-time great baseball players. And this one from Babe Ruth from the 1920s. This is a type 1 photo. What defines a type 1? What is a type 1 photograph?
Type 1, a first-generation photograph developed from the original negative during the period within approximately 2 years of when the picture was taken. What does that mean? That means when the photographer took the photo, he developed it pretty much simultaneously. Why a 2-year difference from the time it's printed and could be printed a year later is because of magazines and periodicals to accommodate type 1s for publications that are not daily, but it could be every 6 months or every 3 months or so on. We expanded the time it takes.
So that's type 1, but tell me about types 2, 3, and 4.
A type 2 is a photograph developed from the original negative during a later period, more than approximately 2 years after the picture was taken. Type 3 is a second generation photograph developed from a duplicate negative or a wire transmission during the period within approximately 2 years of when the picture was taken. And finally, a type 4 is a second generation photograph or a third or later generation developed from a duplicate negative or wire transmission during a later period more than approximately 2 years after the picture was taken.
How do we know how rare these photos are? Like, take for example here, you've got a Babe Ruth and Walter Johnson photo from 1924. Do we have any sense of how many of these might exist in the world?
Well, first of all, what makes it neat is 1924 is when Johnson won the World Series.
That's correct.
So that's part of learning what you're seeing in the photo.
It's like maybe baseball cards. We don't know how many baseball cards were actually.
Sure.
It's not like a coin where the mint tells us
right.
How many were manufactured or how many were printed.
So this photo, Marshall, here, this one really caught my eye. It's Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth together, 1927-28. A really, really clear image too. A really nice photo for that time. So if you had a guess, and I know we don't know the exact answer, but if you had a guess, how many of these do you think exist in the world?
Have I ever seen another one that's like that? Maybe. Have I ever seen one that's not trimmed and the clarity is there and the appearance is there and its condition is there? I imagine, in my view, if there are any, it would be less than the fingers on my hand. I want to discuss this photo of Lou Gehrig, which is a type 1. And what I see in that photo is he's using a glove that's a Kenwell. That was the glove of his choice. He had endorsed Kenwell gloves. Also, if you look, you'll see the usher. So the game is not on. The uniform is just what you want to see, all perfect with the socks, the shoes, the hat, and so on.
In our auctions, we would feature this most likely on a full page. I would expect this to sell in the $15,000 to $18,000 range, and it very well could do better than that. The one thing to keep in mind with photographs, it's who's bidding that night, what collectors are bidding that night, and really how does this photo speak to them.
I want to go through some of the other photos and tell me what attracted you to each of these, Marshall. This is a photo of Joe DiMaggio, circa 1933 to 35.
Yeah, this is when he's playing for the San Francisco Seals, so it's before it's in the minor leagues. The story behind it, how did he get discovered? How did he become a center fielder for the Yankees? So when you look at that image, you should look at what the story is. Why did they take a beautiful picture of him even then? Because he was a star in the minor leagues.
Now this one's a little different. This one also features Joe DiMaggio and Lou Gehrig, and it's actually like a Yankee team photo here.
Yes, and it's 1936, so he's a rookie. A lot of people can identify those players. You can see they're having fun. See how he's smiling? They like the manager, Joe McCarthy, the way I see it. Look where DiMaggio is in the photo. He's
Yep.
in the center.
Yeah, he is.
What
And
does
he's
that tell you? He's already...
He's part of the team. He's right there. He's not an outsider.
More than important. That's a leadership position. So that just gives you some more ideas. Well, it's a team photo. Well, it's more than that. It's the story. How cool that photo is, that he's a rookie and he's not on the left or the right. He's in the
right in the middle of the photo. That's fascinating. This is iconic. You're talking about a figure that transcends sports. Jackie Robinson, 1947, in a Montreal jersey there.
It kind of is interesting because he's smiling, he's waving, he's obviously wearing the uniform of their AAA team against the door of the Dodgers. It's like, hey, I might be in Montreal right now, but I'm going to go through this door.
I'm going to come
play
into this
for the
Dodger
Dodgers.
clubhouse. Yeah, it's got a neat look to it for sure. Now this one I think is really, really neat. This is a photo of Yogi Berra from the 1940s, and this is Yogi Berra's 1950 Bowman card. It of course is the same photo. This is a PSA 8 version of the card. And Marshall, both of these are in your collection. Talk to me about these.
Of course, having a match on a baseball card is really kind of cool for me to have that. When you bought that card, who's Yogi Berra? Well, now we know, 3-time MVP, caught a no-hitter in the 56 World Series Game 5, has all these funny sayings, the game ain't over till it's over. And so it's not only the story of the start of who he is, it's the story of what he turned out to be.
Now here's an iconic player who's known for playing a big role in the story of Jackie Robinson. This is Wee Reese, and once again, photo from 1949. This is Wee Reese's 1950 Bowman card.
It's alleged that he had a lot to do with really caring about Jackie. It's a legend, maybe fact, that in Cincinnati he put his arm around Jackie. Some people say he did, some people say he didn't, but nonetheless, in his leadership role, he was not afraid to go out in public and care about the first black player in baseball.
Yeah. 1949 Duke Snider Type 1 photograph. 1949 Bowman PSA 9 of Duke Snider. Look at that.
Duke was center field. There's a song of the Duke, Mays, and Mantle. And how could you have three of the greatest center fields playing at the same time?
Same city.
And in the same league.
We've got one more match to a card, Warren Spahn.
Look at, what do you see in that picture? Do you know any pitcher that lifts his leg up like that and can win 363 games?
Yeah.
And the reason I like all these 50s and early ones, because that's when players really were loyal to their team. If you look at Reese, Snider, and DiMaggio, they played for the same team.
He didn't even come to the big leagues until later because of World War II. So he didn't come, I think he was 25, 26 years old when he came to the major leagues. Win 363 games. I mean, that's
incredible.
Mind-boggling.
Absolutely incredible. There's a few other photographs here I want to ask you about because I think they're beautiful ones. Ted Williams, first of all.
Well, what I see in that is, look at his face. He's a serious guy. I just think it shows the intensity of who he really is.
Yeah. All of these photos that we're sharing today, these are all PSA DNA authenticated. How important is it to get a photo authenticated, particularly an older one that you believe to be a type 1?
Well, I think authentication, regardless if it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4, is important because there's so many copies of these made for $5 a piece. And so whether you collect, you consider valuable in all the types. And I want to encourage people to be more involved in the images. And if you buy a type 4 and it costs you $150,
sure,
nothing wrong with that. There are collectors who enjoy the hobby, collectors who enjoy the value, collectors who enjoy investments. So there's room for everybody. So in answer to your question, I think it's valuable to know, to have some PSA DNA authentication.
A few more photos to look at here. Duke Snider and Ernie Banks. Quite the duo there, huh?
So when I look at that photo, I had drinks with Duke Snider in New Jersey with Mantle. Snider was kind of a quiet guy. So when I look at the photo, I have a story. Banks stayed at my house when they had Jackie Robinson Day. I took Ernie to get a steam bath, and we had dinner together, and he's a buddy. Of course, he's passed away. Unlike Snider, Banks is very animated. So when you look at those two guys and how young they are and what they accomplished, what is that, 1955?
Yeah. And what's interesting on this one is you found the newspaper clip from a newspaper in 1955 where the photo was published. This is your favorite player, Marshall.
Well, I
Mickey
like
Mantle.
the one on the left. Look at his the strength of his arms. Look at his neck. Look, I mean, the power in that photograph is what I love so much. The second, I like the lattice in the back, the trusses, so you know he's at Yankee Stadium. I liked the way he posed.
Yeah. That's one of the best.
What do you
ones,
think, Brian? I mean,
I love this one. We actually used that on one of our auction covers one time. I just thought it was had a great look and fabulous picture. It just speaks to who Mantle was.
One more of these to share, and this is Pete Rose, 1963.
that's his first game.
First game, photo from his first game. So you have the type 1 photo of Pete Rose's first game, the very beginning of his career.
What I like about that photo, it shows you what a class ball player this guy was. Look at the timing and the strength of his vertical. And, you know, if I were a manager, that's the kind of way I'd like to see a double play made.
And how cool is this, Marshall? This is the biography of Mickey Mantle, and you've got the authenticated photo that was used for the cover of the biography. Talk to me about this, a type 1 from the book.
I bought that photo with knowing that I had the book, and otherwise it just looks like a photo of Mantle smiling. But I'd like to hear what Brian thinks.
Well, I'll tell you, this is what I think. I mean, this is the
You used
photo
it.
that
You
we
used it on that cover of your
Yeah.
book as well.
It's just, if we were going to do a book, which we ultimately did do together on the photographic journey through time with baseball, who better to put on the front cover than Mickey Mantle?
Absolutely. So talk to me about this book. You worked on this book together.
This book profiles Marshall Fogel and Ben Weingarten Type 1 photo collections. You know, I thought it was something that we wanted to do in conjunction with Marshall and Ben, where we could feature their collections and really bring them to the forefront of the hobby, share some things, you know, with the hobby, some images that really, they haven't all been seen.
And I would add, you know, for people that like all kinds of players, there's players like Harry Hyman, Dave Bancroft, High Pockets Kelly, Don Sutton, Roberto Clemente. I try to, every Hall of Famer that I could that would fit into the book. So it's not just Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, and the normal. It's all the players as well that you don't think about.
This has been an absolutely incredible tour of your photo collection. And thank you, Brian.
Absolutely.
I've learned so much about photos from you and from Marshall. You guys have been the greatest. I know the audience has enjoyed it as well. And for everybody out there, please let us know what you think in the comments. Please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe if you enjoyed it. And go check out milehighcardco.com where you can buy your own copy of this book. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Marshall.